get out there, get a show launched, get into the habit, and know that you're going to get better in time, but at least start working that way. Because I think sometimes people over plan, over deliberate on having the most perfect first show, and it might take them a whole year to get there, when they could be learning for that whole year and getting experience and gaining followers and, earning that traction they deserve.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think it's with anything. People, we overplan, and I'm going to do this. It's like with exercise. It's like people, I don't have the time to work out 5 days a week, so I'm just not going to start. And it's like, I can't spend an hour in the gym a day, so I'm going to wait until I have time to spend an hour in the gym a day. And I think it's with anything. You're better off to spend 15 minutes exercising than no time at all. And I think, it's like we wait until we can do it 100% or something like that. And I think you're completely right with podcasting or with anything. The biggest thing is to just start doing it.
Yeah. Jim, if somebody was starting out they wanted to do a podcast right now, and they don't know where to start, what equipment ideas would you give them to go out and buy right now? So if you're listening, get your pen and paper out, take some notes here.
Yeah, well, it's one of those, you can buy a microphone for $50 or something like that. I think there's all kinds of adapters. I mean, there is some stuff, honestly, if you're you and I, we've got Skype lines and stuff like that. So, and I think that's another thing. People are like, I'm in Parker, Arizona, man. Let me tell you, there's not a lot of celebrities around here or anything. So I do everything over the phone lines. But, for a Skype account and a couple bucks a month, you can have a phone number and take calls from anywhere in the world. So, I would say definitely look into Skype, but, if you've got an Apple computer, GarageBand, I still edit everything in GarageBand, and now Logic, which is the upgrade to GarageBand. But GarageBand is totally fine. You can use that. It's free on Apple stuff. I know Windows has, same type of free software. So, you've got that. I think Spreaker, the base account is maybe $9 a month or something. I tell people to use Spreaker for their software because, it distributes to a lot of different platforms. But as far as like equipment goes, I mean, there's some headsets, Audio Technica. I think, you and I think I've got you set up with them. I use them for my remote shows still, but it's like a headset microphone combo, and they're about $200. And I think, a lot of people are like, man, that's a lot, but it's a headset and a microphone, but it's really super high quality for what you're paying, so, and they make adapters for those that are like $10-15 that'll plug right into a laptop. So if you want to avoid the mixing board and all the and all that, and you're not quite ready to get into really mixing your audio and things like that, literally I think $200 headset with a $10 adapter that plugs into your laptop into the USB port, and you can be podcasting, and at a really high quality level. There's a lot of solutions for $50, but I think bang for the buck, if you've got $200 to invest, I would definitely go that route and get started.
Yeah. So that is some great advice for somebody that wants to get started. You're not making a major investment on equipment. Most people have half that stuff at their fingertips. The other half they can get for a couple $100, and then they're off and running doing something that maybe they dreamed or aspired to do. Talk about the evolution of your shows. I remember when you launched your show, and there was another one or two off-road shows out there that were okay, and I thought, wow, Jim's going to add a third one to the mix. How good is that going to be? And I'm going to say this up front. Your consistency and persistence to make a show happen on a regular basis has overcome any obstacles you may have came across, but also has put you on top of the off-road podcasting world, if not some of these other race series worlds. So tell us about your transitions, because I knew where you came from, and I'm constantly amazed at your success.
Yeah, well, like you said, consistency is a key, and I was one of those coming in. Like, I knew I was a rookie, and I didn't want to step on anybody's toes. And I know I'd talk with the reason why I started, an off-road show is, like you said, there was a good one that was out there that both a mutual guy that we both know, Jim Holthus, was doing with the tour show. And he had actually closed that up and went to the Edge show, which I think they were doing. Was it Blue Sea or with the Zunia? I think somehow you were involved with
at my place.
Yeah, so I think the Edge show was going on, and I reached out to Jim because I'd been a guest on the tour show, and I said, dude, are you done with off road? And he goes, I think his quote was, yeah, man. He's like, there's no money to be made there. He's like, we're going a different route. And I said, well, would you be okay if I started an off road show? And I think and Jim goes, yeah. He's like, go for it, man. So it was one of those, I didn't want to step on anybody's toes because the worst thing you want to do is come in and immediately piss everybody off. So I went in and I started, and it was immediately, I think within a couple of episodes, I was going to be just an off-road show because that's what I knew. And I went, man, this is going to be hard because then you've got guys like Ken Block who is racing rally. Well, that's kind of off-road. And, and then you've got guys that race dirt bikes that come into off-road. And, and so it was like, how do you go? It was hard to do just an off-road only show. So we started, encompassing rally and motocross and some other stuff. And it kind of expanded into what we call action motorsports, and it kept steamrolling. And then honestly, a couple of years in, I've been doing it, I think we're 7 years now, my 7th or 8th year. I don't know, we're getting close to 400 episodes. So I think we're almost 8 years, but it started, I started getting, IndyCar and stuff like that reach out to me, these teams like, hey, we interview our drivers. And I'm like, man, like, here's Graham Rahal and Courtney Force who just got married, and they want me to do the first interview with these, two celebrities, that are race car drivers. I'm like, it's stuff you can't turn down, and so, so you say yes, you just go, yeah, I'll do it. So if, the answer is yes, right? You always just say yes. So, you start doing it and, and it got to the point now where, it was getting really big, and, there was part of me that was just like, man, I want to do more, but you couldn't do it with my format with motorsports. So at that point I reached out to Podcast One, who became a great partner of me, and I pitched him on this new show. I didn't want to have to monetize something myself. I knew I didn't want to go through the grind of starting a new show from scratch and doing it all on my own. So I reached out to Podcast One, and they said, yeah, we'll give you a new show. And so they handle all the advertising for that one, and that's how Project Action was born. And that was supposed to be an action sports show. Well, it's become anything but that. And it's but that's kind of I love that show because like I'll get actors and you never know who's going to pop up on that show. And I've got a booking agent there in Beverly Hills, and once I've had Sebastian Bach from Skid Row. I've had I'm just trying to think down the list. I mean, I've had actors from just all kinds of major TV shows on there. I've had all kinds of professional athletes, skateboarders, Paul Rodriguez. I'm just looking down the list, and I'm like drawing a blank here, but we've had some great guests. Jason Ellis, he pops on. I've got to know him pretty well, and he'll pop on from time to time. And so, I've got that where it's just anything but racing. And then it got to the point where I started kind of like, man, we're leaving the off-road community out because my stuff has grown so far. I've kind of grown away from my roots, and I was actually losing off-road listeners. So I started a third show that's now catered just directly towards the off-road community, So it's got one of those, I keep outgrowing these shows, and, I actually have got in my back of my head a fourth show that I would like to do, but it's completely, I don't know that I want to pull the trigger on a fourth show, but it may happen in the next year. But, I've been lucky that I've been able to see the format that Adam Carolla does, and I've been to his studio, and I've been a guest on Carolla's show. And he's a podcast machine, man. That guy does like 10, 12 shows a week. And I've seen how he does it and how he manages to do it, and it's doable if you use the format that he does, And so seeing that, I'm like, that's kind of my goal. At some point, I would love to be doing 5 shows a week, but it's just one of those where timing's got to be right, and so we're at 3 shows right now. I know we're producing 2 for you. I've got a handful of others that I'm kind of advising and distributing for people, and so I don't know. We're kind of got our hands full in the podcasting world right now.
Now, just so that we're all clear on this, excuse me, you're monetizing these shows. This is a career opportunity and life for you now, correct?
Yeah. So my 3 shows are completely monetized, and that's actually one of the keys why I keep adding shows. People are like, why would you do that? Well, it gets to the point where you've got a show maxed out with ads, and you can't have a 45-minute show with 15 minutes of commercials. People will be like, oh, hell with this, so you add another show. So my stuff is completely monetized, and it's got to the point where I've got somebody, I've got a full-time guy, I've got somebody else that works part-time here and there for me. and yeah, we're completely monetized with the shows. We're now, things have grown so big with the shows. Now I've got a staff writer full time, and we're doing motorsports coverage on the website. We've started dabbling in doing e-magazines. We just did one for the Indy 500. They got, I think, over 10,000 views. Wow. So it's like we've got that. We've got almost like, we're handling social media accounts for a couple of clients. I'm bidding a website project right now. So it's like we've become, it went from just podcasting to now we're become a full service like media firm. There's a lot of websites in off-road that people are familiar with. We're actually writing the content for those websites. People just don't know it. We're almost ghostwriting content for all these websites in off-road now. And so it's just kind of crazy. We've got our hands in so many different cookie jars now, and it kind of steamrolled, and it was like, oh, Jimmy does this right, and so like, hey, will you help us with this? Will you help us with that? And so it's like now we went from just being a radio show to kind of a media company of some sort, and it's just kind of crazy the way, but it's like you've always said, people ask, and I see something there, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Yes, let's do it. And if I don't know, yeah. I'll hire somebody to work for me that knows how to do it, but I don't say no to anybody. It's always yes. It's just how we're going to, give me a couple of days to figure this out. I'm saying yes, but I need a couple of days.
Yeah, well, I think, you're a perfect example of what we've talked about on this show with many of our guests saying yes to opportunities. But, your opportunities are an extension of what your passion was, and that was doing this podcast that started out as a radio show, and you evolved into a segment that became very, very popular. You're monetizing that, and then you're creating extensions of that, things that you found that you're good at and people are looking for, and it's naturally progressed into an arena that you're very comfortable with, you're very successful with. I know who your sponsors are. I know some of the websites that you're working on, and you've even shared some of your personal numbers with me. And man, you are making a great living doing what you love, loving what you're doing, and making a difference for these companies. You're just a perfect example of what we talked about on the show.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and it's one of those, like I've always said, I try and, I didn't get into this to make money. I did it by accident, to be honest with you. It was, I just started out because I saw a hole there, and, I was like, oh, maybe I can get a few $100 here or there to help with the race program or something like that. So, it wasn't like I came into this and it was going to be a career choice, but once I saw that it could be, I ran with it, and, but I think the biggest thing is I saw, podcasting, there was an opportunity there, and, so I jumped in there, but you've also got to be able to adapt. And I think I look what I was doing 8 years ago and I look what I'm doing now, and it's completely different. And every single year I look at it, where's the market going? Where do we need to be? Where do we need to be focusing on? And I know like right now, it's, podcasts are going into video and YouTube and things like that, so it's like I'm building out a studio so I can actually start filming the podcast. But not only that, but it's just like you look at market trends, and I look at not only motorsports, but just media trends and where people are at, where they're focusing on, how they're making their money in the certain space, and so it's like, all right, so, every year it's, let's look, where do we want to be at the end of this year? What do I think is going to take off this year? And it's not where I go full force into that spot, but it's like I'm going to put my toes in the water over here, and let's see what happens. And then if we start to get some bites, all right, we're going to jump in and do that. But I think it's one of those. I think a lot of people get set in their ways and they do things a certain way. And I think the way business moves now, and it's so quick, and it's you have to be able to shift so fast. And I think a lot of people they just get set in their ways, and it's like they don't want to change. And to be honest with you, I don't want to change either, but you have to.
Yeah. I was going to ask you if you think that there's still a lot of opportunity in podcasting and new shows, but you just said you're talking about a fourth show. So clearly there's plenty of space left for incoming podcasts.
Well, I think the biggest thing with podcasts, and there absolutely is, but I think the biggest things with podcasts is you have to have a niche, and it's not just a niche anymore, a niche. You got to have a hyper niche. It's like you've got to be really focused on something, and I think, I've seen a kid that I've done some advising. His name's Josh Weesey with a Sponsored Rider Club podcast. He didn't start a motorsports show. He didn't start a power sports show. He started a show based on marketing and getting sponsorships in motorsports. You know what I mean? And like, to me, It's such a hyper niche that he's done well with it. You know, if he would have just done another general, hey, I'm going to interview off-road drivers or motocross guys, it wouldn't have done anything. But he was so hyper niche, you know, that it worked. And I think it's like with cars too. You know, it's like cars. You know, you want to do a car podcast. Don't do that. Everybody does it. Adam Carolla kills it. You know what I mean? Spike Fairston kills it. Don't go into competition with them, but do a show on, say,